Hello and welcome back to another episode of Power Rangers Lore. Today we'll be discussing a long requested episode, the Quantasaurus Rex, or also known as the Q-Rex, the signature Zord of the Quantum Ranger from Power Rangers Time Force. Be sure to keep in tune for more. The Quantasaurus Rex, often called the Q-Rex, is the signature Zord of the Quantum Ranger from Power Rangers Time Force. Now, this is two Zords that share the exact same name. This being the first one from Time Force, the other one being from Megaforce. There is big differences between the two, yet some people get them confused. Arguably, it's pretty simple because they tried to mix up the facts and lore behind it to make it seem like they were the exact same Zord. But they are not. And let's get right down to it. The Quantasaurus Rex wasn't originally supposed to be used as a weapon. It was more of a test. It was a prototype Zord for Time Force that was basically being used as an object to be sent through time travel to see if it actually worked. And it went on several different test runs. It's not exactly said which of these test runs it was, but it's probably more than one. They said it's during one of its test runs, so you can assume right then and there they've been on several. Why were they doing this? Well, let's just say if they had these Time Force Rangers that would eventually have to go back in time or patrol time just in case, you would need some bigger, heavy weaponry to go with them sometimes. If a ship goes through, would a Zord go through without a human crew to guide it? Well, that's what they were trying to figure out right then and there. This one was different though. Unlike the Zords that were made after it, it didn't have a cockpit at all, so it was not meant to be ridden in at all there. So as the other Zords that would be sent later on, they would all have cockpits. This one would not. One of the other major differences between this Q-Rex and the Q-Rex from Megaforce. Now, how exactly did it become lost during one of its tests? How can they find it? That's not exactly fully explained, but later on it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea there. The Zord itself is powered mainly by a special crystal that is only made and manufactured in the future, known as trizenium crystals, a substance developed in the future and only can be developed in the future supposedly, that is made from industrial waste of sorts. It is made from basically all that nuclear waste and other stuff that would be extremely harmful for us and used to power these massive Zord. And because of this thing, it is unstable on so many different levels. The Zord itself can go erratic and basically start interfering with the Quantum Ranger's control over it, as well as when a certain other pair of crystals, of trizenium crystals, gets too close, it could cause time portals, which would basically cause all of Earth to basically be devoured by itself, essentially. All these different timelines clashing and causing a huge major power source and fluctuations that could send major catastrophe all over the place. Now, when it was lost, it was dropped off in the Jurassic period. No one knew where it was just dropped off the radar and it would stay there for a bit. Now, it didn't just sit there and do nothing. It actively walked around and acted like a dinosaur. Mind you, it was bigger than any other dinosaur there at all. Now, T-Rexes are probably 2 to 3 times the height of a human being, and probably a little bit more than that. This thing is a Zord, so this thing is probably 2 to 3 times the size of a T-Rex. And this guy had no competition because he's made entirely of metal. There's no theropod out there that is going to go and attack this guy, or even, it probably looks at Brachiosaurs, and the Brachiosaur is probably up to its legs, or shoulders, maybe at the tallest, maybe Titanosaurus is up there at that point. But again, this guy has cannons on his back. No one's messing with this guy. And it's shown that when they go back in time, Wes and Eric, to retrieve it, after they've made that Eric is the Quantum Ranger and he's going to go to his own Zord, followed by another monster who's also trying to do the same thing, that it had a preset, or seemed like pattern. It would walk around, do certain things, and then go back at night and live in this cave. That's what his whole thing it did. Interesting, it's almost like it had its own little mind or feral animal state that it triggered back to. Why this was, we don't know. For a prototype Zord, it's not fully explained, but then again, it is also powered by the morphing grid on several different levels, so you can assume that some type of influence there caused it to act like an animalistic characteristics that it basically possessed. Now, when it would eventually join the team with the Quantum Ranger, and then later on with the rest of the crew, it had a major power level. It was basically constantly helping the Rangers or fighting against them, depending on when it went berserk, and would basically be a huge asset or a huge deficit. Most of the time it was a huge asset because this thing was a powerhouse, able to destroy basically anything it came across and had no problem doing so. It has these huge giant cannons on its back and it was not afraid to use them. Now, like I said earlier, it had no cockpit, so the only way to control it was through the vocal commands spoken into the quantum morpher. This allowed the person, whoever was talking into it, to control every actions, very similar to that of the Dragon Zord, who had the flute. However, the Dragon Zord did have a cockpit inside of it, and though it was rarely used, this one did not, and it was basically a big deal to have. If you had the morpher, you could still control it. Didn't mean you had the direct connections to it. You didn't have to be the DNA sequence of the same person. As long as you had the morpher, you could control the Q-Rex. Now, at the end of the series, and in the episode known as the End of Time, it is revealed that it is not the only thing powered like these trizenium crystals, but another Zord of sorts, known as the Doomtron, built by Frax, who used it for his own plots and machinations, but was found by Rancic before he could put those in force, and basically tied the machine and turned into his own slave to Rancid. Now, when the two Zords came too close together, and both having those crystals, it caused time portals to open up that were causing major devastation throughout the town and the area, to such levels that Time Force itself was like, this is a no-fly zone, we can't go there. This is basically like every earthquake, tsunami, and a volcano going off at once. Everything bad happening is happening because of these crystals interfering. And for the longest time, they didn't know it was because of those two crystals, because there was just a blackout area. They go, no one flies this time zone, this is why. Something bad is going to happen there, and they're not exactly certain what it was going to be the cause, but they knew something bad was going to happen. Now, in the battle, Eric gives up his morpher to Wes to command the Q-Rex because, well, stuff happens, and he trusts Wes to get the job done. Now, he is able to command the Q-Rex to get close to the portals and use its crystals to neutralize the portals, thus ending the entire issue of the time flying, basically just frying at that point. And at this point, you would think it would cause the Q-Rex to fall apart. It's its own power source is gone. However, it still possessed enough power to destroy Doomtron, showing it apparently possessed more than one power source, and I'm going to say it probably had a mini pack-up power generators, but also it was powered off the morphing grid because it is a Zord, so remember that. Now the Zord after that kind of disappears, and it kind of, that's it. We don't see it anymore. It does not really destroyed, but it just chills out. Its power sources are gone, and that's it. It doesn't have any purpose currently. But before that, it had two modes they would use, the Dinosaur mode and the Megazord mode. Now, in the Dinosaur mode, it had its Q-Rex lasers, which are those giant two big blasters, and a giant laser that fires from its mouth. It was essentially Mechagodzilla on steroids. And while it could not at all merge with any of the other Zords from the Time Force arsenal, essentially, it was able to perform a strange combination where it would work with the Time Force Mode Red Megazord, and it would, the Mode Red would jump on the back of the Q-Rex, and forming the Time Force Megazord Q-Rex Rider, which then used to defeat the monster Dragontron. Yeah, it was basically like him just surfing in the back. There was no weird foot patterns or merging with it at all. It just did it and basically held ham. Now, for the for the Megazord form, it had a bunch of different weapons there. It had a special attack known as the Max Blizzard attack, where it fired beams of energy and forces mutants into stasis. And then on its left hand, it had the Q-Rex Thunder Fist, which is basically just a big punch. And then it also had its Q-Rex Missiles, which is a gauntlet of Gatling gun-like missiles that it just fires off to take out anything else at all. Now, that is essentially right then and there the Q-Rex Megazord to its extreme. Now, people get it confused because in Megaforce itself, they say this is the Q-Rex and this is an upgraded version of it. While it is an upgraded version, the Q-Rex from the Megaforce series is different because it has a cockpit, it has a drill-based weaponry, and its entire dinosaur T-Rex design is completely different. Now, if you look carefully, you will notice its arms are smaller than anything else. It is 3-tone claws there, guys, as a T-Rex is, and its main thing is its blaster in the back and its jaw and blaster in its mouth. Now, the Q-Rex from the Megaforce series has a drill-based weapon when it's in Megazord form, and also has another drill base there. Its arms are double the length of essentially the Q-Rex of the Time Force area. So do not get these guys confused. While it says it's an upgrade, I think it was a direct copy, but just goes, okay, we need to update this, this, and this. We can rebuild it from here and the like. It is not the same Zord at all. It also has a completely different paint job. So do not get these confused in any way, shape, or form. It just basically took the name to work on nostalgia of like, oh look, this is the same Zord, but it's not. Whatever. That is basically it right then and there. So that is right there the Quantasaurus Rex, or also known as the Q-Rex from Power Rangers Time Force. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if there's any other videos you guys want me to talk about, and I will work on the next one for you guys pretty soon. Have a good one, and may the power protect you always.